Hello and welcome to Conversations with Mrs. R. My name is Marian. It's always a pleasure and privilege bringing the show to you and sharing this space with amazing women. Of course, I will start with introducing Mrs. R, who we're having the conversation with, and she's got her friends in the house. But first of all, Mrs. R, it's good to have you back.
Thank you.
And as always, you come with amazing people. First of all, we have our coach. You know, our coachee. No retreat, no surrender. Auntie Tochi, it's great to have you at the show.
Thank you.
And Mrs. R has brought a new friend, and I'm very excited because I got to talk and gist with her before the show started. So I'm so excited to have her have this conversation with us. And CHINWE KALU is here with us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
All right, we're going to sign you for permanent basis.
I'm always available.
Fantastic. Now, today, our conversation centers around single parenting. And there are many dimensions to it. And I hope today we're able to touch on these dimensions and, of course, talk about what it involves and how it can evolve. Mrs. R, I'm going to go first to you. Why single parenting? What was the need you saw that you thought we should have a conversation around this?
I think the need is so visible. It's become quite rampant, and it's a source of concern, not only to me, but I'm sure any well-meaning individual, because it means that families are affected. It means that children are affected. And if that's the case, then society is affected. So we always also chat amongst ourselves to know what is rife in the community and what we need to address. So it's come up in our questionnaires that it's a very important topic, sadly, to handle. But to bury your head as an ostrich is not helpful either. So it's important to discuss these matters and be able to profess solutions, hopefully, yes.
And one of the great things about having Auntie Tochi on this particular topic is that Auntie Tochi has a whole book on parenting, first of all. Auntie Tochi is the parenting guru.
She's writing another one.
Another one. So if anybody can give us, you know, a roadmap to this, Auntie Tochi is in the best position. Auntie Tochi, I'm going to come to you.
All
single
right.
parenting.
Okay.
And I'm talking from experience because I'm from a home of a single mother. And that's, my dad died when I was about 2.
Yeah.
And my eldest sister was 16. So and we're 7 girls.
Wow.
So she had 7 of us, you know, as a single parent. And, you know, then I thought, oh, my mommy's like this, mommy's like that. She had rules. And I didn't understand until I became a parent. It was just 2. And I have a partner. And I'm thinking, how on earth did she do it? If I was a single parent listening to this, Auntie Tochi, what are the first things as a single parent? What would you talk to me about? What would you advise me? What are the words that you would tell me to take me on that path? Because sometimes it must be, I can't imagine, it must be overwhelming. Yeah. So what are those words you would share to a single parent?
You already said one, overwhelming. What I will tell you is that you matter in the whole scheme of things. You are the sole engine room. So self-care. Self-care. You have to find a way of prioritizing your welfare while managing other dynamics at play, being a single parent. I'll ask you to have your plans about how you're going to parent. Because in a 2-parent dynamic, you banter ideas, you share ideas. Here, you are on your own, as it were. So you have to always be very deliberate and planned about your choices, your plans, what options, just in case I'm not able to. I'll also tell you to find yourself a support system. And that can be within the family, siblings, your circle of friends, community, even your faith community. So you need that because there are some days you won't be enough. So you need that support system. So I yield the floor for now.
You know, there's so much you have put in just a few minutes. So much that we can break down. Mrs. R, I'm going to start from the last sentence she said. Sometimes you will not be enough.
Yes.
And I know the pressure because I've seen when growing up sometimes, seeing my mom, you know, being overwhelmed, and a few times tears.
Yes.
You know, and she would say, if I didn't know my dad, so I didn't see the big deal if he's not around, so like I didn't know him. But now being a wife, I can imagine what she was going through, because sometimes she would say, oh, if only Eddie was around. I'm thinking Eddie's not been around forever. So what's the big deal? Do you understand? But sometimes you're not enough.
Yes.
How do you go through that time when you know it's just me?
Yeah. Now I hear you. I remember I have an aunt who, she's passed on now, and she had 8 children. Her husband died during the Civil War, and she was left with these 8 children, 5 girls and 3 boys. And she once said to us, of course, it didn't make much sense then, that she looked at herself and thought, look, girl, nobody's going to marry you.
With
No
8 children.
matter how much they love you. So you've got to pick yourself up. But now looking back, she never came across to me as a victim. And I'm thinking now, what were the things I noticed around her that gave me that impression? I know that she once said to us that she had to immediately co-opt her children to become like partners and friends. And that her eldest daughter became like her husband. So they would discuss. There was a bit of a gap between the daughter and the second child. And they would, every time, one of her daughters is my age, and she said every time they had a problem at home, the mom would say, ask your older sister. And they couldn't quite figure it out. But very recently, when they had a family celebration, they recalled that their mom said to them, at that point, she picked her daughter to become her companion and her ally. You may say that it would have put the daughter under a lot of pressure.
She had to mature very early.
Very early. But that was the way. And I know the dynamics at that point. The dynamics at that point. I remember also that the children became her main focus, and she was always in church. She was an Anglican, but she must also have found succor in her activities and her participation in church. And lastly, I recall also that they had a family estate. Their home was situated in an estate, and she was surrounded by relatives who were like surrogate dads. So they had an uncle who was right next door, shared a duplex with him. So that's what I can remember if I were to give you a real life example. Yes.
Yeah. Now, I will ask you, Chinwe, we've talked about single parenting from the angle of some people who've lost their spouse and all. What about some people who want to be intentional single parents, meaning, okay, I'm probably 40, not married, but I want to have a child. And so I want to adopt, I want to have a baby. There was never a husband in the picture. What do you, so most people are thinking of it like, okay, I want a child of my own. What words of advice would you give someone who intentionally wants to be a single parent?
Well, parenting on its own is something that people have to be intentional about. So if you make up your mind that you want to be a parent by yourself, you have to understand that you need to be intentional. And all the things that have been said here are part of the things that you will have to embrace to be able to raise this child. Parenting is parenting. The only situation is that you are now on your own instead of having a partner to work it with you. And so having made that decision, you have to now walk the path and walk it properly to be able to raise a child. There are a lot of things that go with single parenting. When you're a widow, you might even have some kind of
family
empathy. But when you make up your mind to do it yourself, you're probably just going to be by yourself, you know. And so you need to be ready for the work that lies ahead. And so for me, one of the major things that I think a single parent should understand is that you can't work it alone. You must have that support system. And I always encourage faith. Like you said, talked about the lady you just talked about. Like you even talked about this earlier when we were talking about your mom. That's faith angle. That those times when you don't feel adequate, those times when you feel I'm not enough, those times when you're struggling for whatever reason, you need that faith angle to be able to also give you guidance as you work with your child or the child you have chosen to adopt. parenting is serious business. So if you're going to do it by yourself and you make the choice, then you really have to brace up to be able to do it the way it should be done. The fact that you're alone is not going to be a good enough excuse for you not to raise a child that is responsible, able to handle the pressures of life, work life in a way that makes you proud as a parent. It doesn't excuse you, you know, so make the decision, but recognize that there are things that go with that decision. It's not, people think about parenting and think money. I can afford, most of the people who make that choice can afford it. But parenting, the money bit is the least problem with parenting. So you need to guard, you need to really, really set yourself up to make sure that, yes, I have the money, I can send them to the most expensive schools, but what about the emotional part of it? What about the mental part of it? What about the affirmations? What about the being there, the being present as a parent? Are you going to be able to deliver on the whole, you know, spectrum? If you can't, then be careful. But if you have made the choice, then get ready to do it and then do it, you know.
Yeah.
Now, that's another angle I want to ask you, Auntie Tochi.
Yeah.
So we've talked about single parenting from intentional, like I want to adopt, single parenting from maybe I got pregnant and even though I wasn't intentional, it has happened, or I lost a spouse. What about single parenting where both of them are there, but it seems like you're a single parent because one person is only there in physical, just I happen to be in that house, but all the responsibilities of training that child rest on one person, either the husband or the wife, or even in situations where, you know, this new thing, and it's common now where families are separated because for the better life, the wife is told
Greener
to go
pastures.
greener pastures. They said, okay, go with the 3 children to Canada, to the UK, while I stay back in Nigeria, send money. So literally, you're a single
You're
parent.
a single parent.
How do you walk that path where you can't really tell people that you're a single parent because you have a husband? But kind
Challenges
of.
it,
Yeah, life.
Sometimes
life has happened.
Even in the same house.
Even in the same
same
while
house.
people
They're
are
like
in the same house.
tenants in the same house.
Yes.
And yet the children are in between.
Yes, yes, it's a real thing. You know, like we've looked at 2 life scenarios. The thing here is that parent, you're grappling all the time with the overwhelming sense of having to be everything to your children. The thing with parenting is that it ought to be cooperative.
Yes.
So in the greener pasture angle, if you have a spouse, though not physically there, but it's very much part of the life you're living with the children, at least brings ideas, brings support emotionally, psychologically, touching base with the children. Yes, you may have to do all the physical work, but it's easier. At least you have someone you can pick up the phone, discuss matters and all that. But in the abandonment one, where 2 of us are here, but one person is pretending as though I'm not here, it can be a lot.
Yes.
It can actually be a lot. And the mental load of having to figure it out, work it out, execute it, plan it, it can affect somebody's mental state.
Yeah.
And they say the best barometer of whether a child can do well or not is the health of the parent. Surprisingly, people think it's money. It is the health of the parent. So I keep coming back to that point of how is the parent coping? You have to make sure you are in tandem with yourself.
Yes.
Sometimes parents just feel, well, I have these 4 children. Let me just be bringing them up. Let me just be bringing them up. In a way, the way you feel is filtering into the lives of these children. An anxious parent transfers anxiety without saying a word.
Yes.
A frazzled parent transfers that to the child. And that's what happens when one person is having to deal with what is meant to be for 2 people. So those are some of the things that happen there.
And I'm going to piggyback from what she said. Mrs. How do you do the work-life balance? Because you're a single parent, either on your own, widowed, or a single parent in a 2-parent household, but you still have
You're
work.
the one pulling.
You're still sometimes the breadwinner. You're still doing that. How do you balance it? And in all of this, Antochi says we should still find time for ourselves. It seems as if the time is not even enough for one part of this whole life. How do you balance?
Honestly, it's very difficult. It's difficult. I think it's easier said than done. But having said that, there's got to be a solution.
Yes.
So Let me touch on something that I wanted to say before I go back to this. I'm very concerned about this issue of parents separated because of children. They're going to Canada, the children are going to America, and the parents are here. And I'm hoping that it would make a difference, because only about a few weeks, 3 weeks ago, I was saying to a lady who was taking her daughter to America, and I said to her, please don't separate your family. It's either your husband joins you or you keep that child here. And I really meant it, because we're having situations where the children go, the mother moves, the father stays, and there's another mom involved because there's a gap in the home. So ultimately, it brings distress to the children. And I said to her, you have to evaluate and see, is it really worth sending this child abroad? Or would it be wiser to keep this child here until she's of age where she can take care of herself on her own, and it doesn't disrupt your family life? I want to say here that there's not a week or 2 weeks when at least once in 2 weeks, we get a distress call from parents who've had to bring back children, from homes who've been severely disrupted by this separation. So people need to count the cost. And before you rush to take such decisions, we are also coping with situations where the children are being brought back with mental health issues. And some of them ended up without the degree. Some have the degree but are now looking for homes. The parents are looking for rehabilitation homes. We get these calls all the time. And then to your question, how do we work through this life balance? And I'm thinking, how did parents carry out this task of bringing up 8 children in our days? And they lived a better, I mean, you're of that age where you can recognize that they lived a better quality of life. I think that contentment was key. They didn't stretch themselves beyond what they had the capacity, financial or emotional, to handle. And they lived simple lives. They were not, if they were to travel, they were not traveling because it was a stretch. They were traveling because they could afford it. If they had 8 children, they were not planning to take the 8 children. They took one at a time. So what is there to learn? I think contentment is important. Proper planning and budgeting. Don't overstretch yourself. Do your calculations. And this is not faith.
No.
A lot of it is presumption. Do your calculations. Do your family conversation. Have your family conversations. Arrive at what is you genuinely need to do, what you can afford to do, and what is the excess. So that in itself brings a calming effect to your lifestyle and to your home. But when the parent, as Auntie Tochi has said, is struggling and frazzled and trying to make money at all costs, that automatically affects the children's welfare. But if you simplify this thing and know what you can afford, then even your work, because a lot of times we are working 24/7 to be able to afford this lifestyle, and it's affecting everybody else. And then you've tipped over because the balance is not, it's not a balance anymore. It's not.
Just by your life, by the choices you make.
By the choices you make.
And I'm going to continue from what she said with you and CHINWE. One of the things that I also think from the contentment, sometimes do we also put pressure on ourselves, even as single parents? Sometimes you feel you already have that tag, single parent, around you. So you're pushing that my child, there shouldn't be a difference between my child and the child that has a two, because you feel society is already expecting you and your child to fail. So there's this added pressure. You even push the child a bit more than the... How do we deal with that idea in our heads?
You know, and I think that is actually where we should start in terms of being a single parent. I think we should come to terms with the fact that we're single parents and recognize that I'm a single parent. My child doesn't have a second parents, but it need not, if you come to terms with where you are, that sense of being under pressure will definitely reduce. But when you don't even believe, you already feel that you are in a negative place because you're a single parent, that also begins to drive how you do and the choices that you make with your child. So for me, if you're a single parent, co-opt your child, like you said about your friend, the lady you talked about, she co-opted her first child. I think, and even you mentioned it when you're talking about your mom, your children should know that, look, our family is different, but it's us.
And together we can make it.
We need, if we're going to make it, we need to work together. We need to be in agreement. And then you place the values on the table and make them understand. I remember you saying, people did jump only once.
Yes.
At the time you were doing jump once, there were families where children were your mates who did jump 4 times. But you understood, the children understand when the parent is open enough to agree that, see, we're in a situation, it is not necessarily negative, it's just different. But we need, but we need to be able to work together to get to a place where all of us come out of this looking good. And then, so once you've got their buy-in, you'll be surprised that half the problems that parents have,
the tension and the pressure.
Children understand immediately that my mom and I are on the same side, my dad and I are on the same side. And in fact, they will start to live their lives to work it out to please you.
Correct.
Because you have opened up.
And they will also live their reality.
Yes.
Nobody can set them up
and for anything else.
To set traps for them.
So at this point, you are telling them when the resources are scarce, you are saying, see guys, we have a bit of a situation now. Our resources are scarce. We have to manage at this time. Your children will immediately line up. Immediately. But if you are making out like, I want to be like the Joneses, the fact that I'm single doesn't mean anything. My children can do what the other children can do. You are already setting them up for competition that is not even there. You are racing against
and
yourself.
Not necessary.
And totally unnecessary. So what happens? Your children start to live a life that you are not necessarily prepared for. And before you know what's happening, there's all that pressure that you don't need. It need not be difficult. I don't even see much difference between single parenting and when the two parents are there. The principles are the same. Intentionality, affirmation for the children, showing them faith and living faith yourself. Don't pretend, be yourself. Be the model that you want your children to become. If you follow those principles, you'll be fine with your kids. But if you have the background feeling that there's something wrong with what we are, then you won't be able to deliver. You know
what you just said.
That pressure.
It's so important. I remember being in boarding house, you know how people bring provisions, and there's a midterm break in between your provisions. I remember my mom, because I went in Fairmont College in Port Harcourt, but we lived in Lagos. And I remember going to school, she would give you your provisions for the term, the whole term, and then she would tell you something. She said, you will not come home for midterm. Your friends can finish their provisions, go home for midterm, bring more, and continue. So when I used to go to school, I remember that I would divide my provisions, hide half in my box, bring out only half. When that half finishes, we're all broke. I never go back because I know in my mind, my mom has told me that there's nothing coming again. Do you know there's nothing you can tell me? Like maybe, no, then when everybody comes from midterm, I will not bring out my own. You just said it, I now understood what she was doing.
And that's just the way it works. Even as parents, a lot of parents, I remember we had a problem once and my husband mentioned to some other lady about the fact that he told his children about this challenge. I said, why are you talking to your children about those things? Those things are supposed to be between you. The children shouldn't be bothered with those things. No. You should tell your children the truth. Let them know exactly what's going on.
But in an empowering way. So that you don't also cause panic.
Absolutely.
What you can deal with as an adult, what you can process, they can't. So you have to say it from a place of, this is what it is, but we are doing this.
In fact,
so it shows progress.
And so the child is not afraid, but recognizes that this challenge, we are working through it as a family. So when we did have a family situation, and my husband and I talk about it, but we didn't know. We used to eat chicken and ice cream every Sunday, and I was like, we'll smile at each other. Yes, they didn't know the details, but at least we're not pretending to say life is. And that's the same thing with a single parent. Don't pretend. You need to be more yourself than any other parent, because children need to know what they need to know about you so that they can align themselves with you and not give you problems as you are trying to navigate life with them.
This has been amazing. And Tochi, I will have a word from you and Mrs. Ao to wrap this up. Now, one of the things we need to do, because this will be a series, and the reason why we need to do a second series on this is in our society, especially when we think of single parenthood, we just think women. But there's so many men young, middle age, who are single parents that are walking this road. Either they lost their wives, or some whose wives have left the marriage, or some who are actually the present parents in a two-parent household. We always think women, but there are so many men that are
Or
going
men
through.
that had children, like we're saying, unintentional, and the child has been
Given to them, and they have
handed over.
accepted the responsibility that I will take on
This
That's
responsibility.
why we definitely have to have a series two to have some
Yeah.
of these men have the discussion and their examples. But Auntie Tochi, can I have like a final word from you and a final advice for single parents out there? Because I know we can say a lot, but like someone would say, it's the person who is wearing the shoe that is speaking. But also from your experience of being a coach, a life coach, and a parent life coach, what would you say?
There's something we say locally, say, know thyself. Know thyself. Whatever your peculiar circumstances are, know who you are in that and what your options and what your goals are. Life can never be balanced. Even for the two parents, life can never balance. So project. Before you start the journey, or if you find yourself, you have started the journey, from the onset, make projections. They are like guardrails that would help you as you navigate. Don't go into ad hoc reactions. You may fall off the wagon. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Auntie Tochi. Ms. Zara, any final words for single
two
parents?
thoughts actually. So my heart goes out to men because we ladies seem to always find support systems more readily when we emotionally we're able to chat through many of these things. But men don't, and I really want to encourage men to do so. Jesus Christ was vulnerable. He wept when his friend Lazarus died. I don't think he needed to weep, but I think he was making himself vulnerable and as an example for men to follow. So God created the tear duct for a reason. It's okay for men to know they can cry. It's okay for them to know we're not expecting them to be strong at all times and to find friends that they can chat honestly with. And then to give a scriptural basis to what we've shared here, which is Haggai in the Bible. So we want to encourage single parents. It may be Haggai, but biblically it's generic. Men and women, the principles are the same. So I like the fact that Hagar, thank you. The book is Haggai. Hagar wasn't she wasn't a single parent of her own choice. She got put in that pathway by her mistress, but she had to run away. She had to be sent away. But in the wilderness, God met her. God sees and God heard. So he saw Hagar's distress and he heard Ishmael's cry. So I want the single parents to know that God knows their current position and God is there to help. So you're not disadvantaged. You're not disadvantaged. And sometimes you may look and think, oh, the married ones are better. But I think that God in his compassion and mercy is actually more with the downtrodden and the vulnerable and the ones who are extremely weak, because then his strength is made perfect. So God is with you. God is with your children. He singles you out to actually hear your cry. You know, so be encouraged. He saw Hagar in the wilderness and he saw Ishmael and said, there's yet a promise in that young man that will be fulfilled. So there's yet a promise in your children and in your lives that would be fulfilled in spite of where you are and regardless of what you're going through.
I remember growing up, when things got too hard for my mom and things were too tough, she would say something. She would say, you're the husband to the widow and the father to the fatherless. I think that was the best scripture I ever
Encouraging
knew.
herself.
Yes, and so she would say at this point in
Herself.
time, I can't do anything. You're the husband to the widow and the father to the fatherless. And I think that's very important. Look for something that you hold on to, a promise from God that you can hold on to. And so when because things will get tough, even for two-parent households.
For two-parent households.
Oh, yes.
It will get tough. So we need that to push through. Thank you so much, Auntie Chinwe.
It's I mean, you took the words out of my mouth, Mrs. R. You know, the fifth angle of parenting is something we shouldn't take lightly. He knows us, our challenges, our strengths, our weaknesses, and he also knows our children, the destinies he has for them, and the things that we need to bring to bear to be able to raise these children. And it doesn't change because you're single. So you're not alone. God is totally on your page, and he's there for you if you would just recognize that he is there. Don't go this alone. Hold on to him. Those promises are real promises. That one your mother used to say is a fantastic one. He's always there. The Hagar story is a true story. So hold on to this God, because he's the one that can actually make all the difference and bring you to El Dorado, that place that you're looking for.
Thank you so much, Auntie Chinwe. Thank you, Auntie Tochi. And Mrs. R, thank you for this conversation, because many memories coming to my head just thinking about it, and just knowing that at the end of it, at least I'm a product.
I was going to say,
I'm a product of a woman who
splendid
walks that
product.
walk.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and it's good to know that you're in the dress. And my sister says something. She says, the God of my mother.
Yes.
She says, I'm leaving. She always says this, I'm leaving the blessings from my mother. So if you're a single parent out there, you're thinking, how can I cope? I can tell you that I have kids now, and I grew up with a woman that did it because God held her hand, and so it can happen for your children. Just hold on. Don't give up. Don't think it's over. You are never alone. But remember, Antochi said, support system. Get a support system. Get families. Get friends.
And openness.
Openness. You are not perfect, so don't try to be. Get your children involved in the journey so that you all walk it together. I do hope this conversation today has helped even one person, because it's been profound. Thank you again. Thank you. Thank you. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right, it's been Conversations with Mrs. R. My name is Marian. We will be back another time with something really interesting. Remember, the men, we'll be talking about the men's angle to single parenting. That's something you definitely cannot miss. If you have questions or you need any help, all the details are below this. Please get in touch, and we will be able to help you walk this journey. Thank you for listening and watching.